gun shattered the suburban quiet. I winced, expecting the usual hum of my neighborhood kids on bikes, sprinklers hissing, but not this. Before the echo faded, a piercing voice sliced through the airstop that, "Construction now, or I'll have the city tear it down myself." I turned to see a woman in a neon tracksuit, oversized sunglasses, perched on her nose, charging up my driveway like a general storming a battlefield. She clutched a tablet as if it were a grenade, her fingers already snapping photos of the permit sign staked in my lawn. This was Linda Voss, president of our Homeowners Association, a woman who wielded her title like a scepter and mistook her cul-de-sac for a kingdom. The irony, the permit she was threatening to shred was one I'd personally signed, sealed, and delivered as the deputy director of city planning. I bit my tongue, letting her rant, her voice climbing higher as she circled the plywood like a vulture. She didn't know she was waving a stick at a sleeping giant. 2 weeks earlier, I'd finally gotten approval to build a modest office shed in my backyard, a sleek 120-foot prefab with a skylight and solar panels my wife Sarah had pushed for it. Tired of my remote job spilling into our kitchen, where I'd pace during client calls, dodging her cooking. We'd done everything by the book, filed blueprints, cleared zoning, and double-checked the HOA's own rules, which, fun fact, didn't ban structures under 150 square feet. I thought we were golden. Then Linda descended like a storm. The crew had barely unloaded their tools when she was pounding on my door, not asking but accusing. "You're violating Section 3C of the HOA's aesthetic code," she barked, jabbing a manicured finger at me. I calmly explained the clause only applied to structures over 12 feet tall. Mine was 9.6. She scoffed as if I had recited poetry and declared the HOA hadn't approved it when I mentioned my city-issued permit. She flicked her wrist, claiming the HOA trumped local law on visual harmony. I nearly laughed but held back. She stormed off, muttering about making calls. That's when the real chaos began. Within days, a notice from the city landed in my inbox. My permit was under review due to community objections. Filed by the HOA, Linda had escalated from neighborhood nag to bureaucratic saboteur, manipulating processes. She barely understood the delicious twist that review process ran through my department. She'd lobbed a Molotov cocktail into her own backyard without realizing I held the fire hose. I didn't push back. Not yet. I let her think she was winning. She started sending HOA patrols, nosy retirees with clipboards to harass my workers, snapping photos and whispering about fines. One afternoon, I caught her measuring my lawn with a tape measure, muttering about setback violations, leaning on my fence, coffee in hand. I asked if she needed a calculator. She ignored me, hissing that she'd end this soon. Linda wasn't content with just targeting me. She tried to turn the neighborhood into her personal army at an emergency HOA meet and ginvite. Naturally, she passed out flyers titled "Preserving Our Community's Charm," claiming my shed would tank property values, attract pests, and block sunlight. She even suggested it would cause Wi-Fi interference, which got a chuckle from the tech guy next door. The shed was smaller than most garages, tucked neatly behind my house, and compliant with every regulation. But facts didn't matter to Linda. Controlled it, I started documenting everything: her trespassing on my property, her wild emails to the city, pretending she was a zoning guru. Even her rants caught on my doorbell cam. It was almost too easy when she claimed my shed was too tall. I pulled the architectural plans showing it was under 10 feet. When she weighed about aesthetic mismatch, I pointed to a neighbor's gaudy pergola that she'd never complained about. The turning point came one evening as I walked my dog. Linda was in the cul-de-sac, bragging to a neighbor about her city hall connections and how she'd have my permit revoked by week's end. "He doesn't know who he's messing with," she laughed. That was it. She'd swung too hard, and I was done playing possum that night. I logged into the city's system and reviewed her complaints. They were a mess of lies, fake contractor signatures, missed codes, even a claim that my solar panels posed a flight hazard to planes. I opened a case file labeled Civic Interference with approved permits and flagged it for multi-department review. Then I set my city badge on my desk. It sealed, glinting under the lamp. This wasn't personal anymore, it was official. The next day, Linda strutted onto my lawn expecting to gloat as my workers packed up. Instead, she found silent side-paused construction for a bigger play. When she knocked, I cracked the door, holding a new permit. This one state-approved, classifying my shed as a green infrastructure project with solar upgrades and a second level. Her smirk vanished. "You've been loud, Linda," I said coolly. "Time to learn how the system really works." I shut the door, but Linda didn't back down. She doubled down. She hammered red stopwork signs into my flower beds, claiming HOA authority to mark violations. I snapped photos of her vandalism, including one where she grinned beside a crooked sign. By evening, I'd sent the evidence to the HOA's legal board and the city's code enforcement. Her signs became Exhibit A. Then she crossed a line. Linda hired a private inspector, a retired handyman she found on Lanito Snoop in my backyard. My neighbor Mike overheard the guy admit he had no credentials yet. There he was, trespassing and taking photos. I filed a police report at work. I briefed my team. My colleague Ellen nearly choked on her coffee when she heard Linda was trying to override a permit I'd issued. "She's fighting the zoning boss with no clue who he is," she cackled. We agreed I'd step back from directly handling my case for transparency, but I still advised the review team. Linda's letters were comedy gold. She cited irrelevant fire codes, claimed my shed would disrupt satellite signals, and recycled her airplane hazard nonsense. We found her own house had unpermitted solar heaters from 2010. The irony was too rich. Linda's campaign grew desperate. She held another HOA meeting, distributing flyers with a photoshopped image of my shed as a 5-story office tower, claiming I was opening a commercial hub with food trucks and traffic. 2 days later, she filed a new complaint saying I was building a party house for rowdy tenants. The contradictions were laughable, but her lies were unraveling. I submitted a revised permit triggering a state-level green energy review that locked my project out of her reach under the Clean Structures Act. I also filed a formal complaint against the HOA for violating homeowner rights. Then I mailed a legal packet to every HOA board member, detailing Linda's forged documents, trespassing, and defamatory social media posts, calling me a rogue builder. The tide turned at the next HOA meeting. Linda tried to dodge questions about her citations. Her house had failed inspections for faulty wiring and an illegal fence. The clubhouse, her pride and joy, was shut down for mold and fire code violations. Residents grilled her about fines and locked facilities. I stood up, introduced myself as Deputy Director of City Planning, and handed out copies of her falsified complaints. The room went quiet, then buzzed with shock. I didn't yell or gloat. I let the evidence speak. Linda's hands shook as she stared at the papers, her authority crumbling. A neighbor clapped, then stopped. But the message was clear. Her reign was over. An anonymous tip sealed her fate. A city clerk sent me emails where Linda asked a supposed zoning insider how to fake a violation report. The messages were damning, with timestamps and attachments. I forwarded them to the city's legal team, sparking an investigation into municipal interference. Meanwhile, my shed was finished solar panels, gleaming interior. Furnished neighbors who once sided with Linda now asked for my blueprints. The city's probe found Linda had misused HOA funds to landscape her own yard, funneling money to her brother's company. She was fined, banned from HOA rolls, and her brother's business lost its license. A local news segment, HOA Power Trips, When Leaders Go Rogue, featured blurred shots of her signature visor. Everyone knew the neighborhood exhaled. Kids biked freely, porches filled with chatter, and the clubhouse reopened with a suggestion board. Marvin, the new HOA president, asked me to consult on reforms. We drafted transparent voting rules and community grants for elderly homeowners. At a block party, residents thanked me for standing up. I didn't do it for praise. I did it because rules matter and bullies like Linda thrive when we stay silent. My office shed, once a battleground, became my sanctuary. I hung a state-issued green certified plaque facing Linda's house. It shined a quiet jab. She avoided me now, her once loud presence reduced to a ghost one night. Sarah and I sat on the porch, the sky purple, crickets humming. "Did you think it would end like this?" she asked. I looked over at the shed, the quiet street, and smiled. No, but when one swings too high, the system swings harder. Patience, paperwork, and honesty. Tads.